Welcome to Talk the Walk. I'm Jaynie Morris, and it's great to have your company once again on our Talk the Walk podcast. Now, my job is to bring to you people who are raising their voices, uniting with others, exploring solutions to issues and challenges, and most of all, inspiring others with what they do. My guest today was sitting at a table recently with 9 other women, none of whom she knew, settled into to hear from Australia's number one Prime Minister. Well, she was the first female Prime Minister, and I guess by that little misstep there, we'll probably agree she was the number 1 Prime Minister in recent history. I was fortunate to be seated right next to my guest, and as a result of that event, I not only experienced a fabulous interview with Julia on her take on politics in Australia, but I also encountered the vibrance and vitality of Ria Mestiza. Ria is the number 1 health and wellness coach in Australia for 2021, as featured in Yahoo Finance, Sports, News, and Influenique magazine. She's the founder of Fitsique Wellness and Performance and the host of Summon Your Superhuman podcast. With over 20 years experience in training and nutrition as a competitive athlete, she transforms clients and speaks to audiences all over the world. And as she's dedicated to impacting and inspiring a life beyond expectations, I just simply had to have her on our podcast. So Ria Mestiza, welcome to Talk the Walk.
Thanks, Jaynie, for having me. I have to say the pleasure was equally mine to be placed next to you at that table.
The universe works in mysterious ways. It was interesting because we did have the conversation. I think I was carrying on quite a bit initially about the fact that, number one, I don't do breakfasts, and it was a breakfast event, and I don't like wearing high heels anymore, and I was all dressed up with those. And you know, I think we sort of had a few jokes about that, in particular about the fact that you do breakfasts, Ria.
I don't mind the morning. I wasn't always a morning person, and I'm not always the best, I will admit. But yes, I don't like wearing heels either. And I was wearing the heels that day. You know, I prefer to be in sneakers. But, you know, it was well worth it, wasn't it? It was amazing. So why not?
It certainly was. It was a great event. So this podcast is all about you, Ria. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'd like you to let our listeners get a little bit of an insight into Ria Mestiza. So give us a bit of background and on you.
Okay. Where do I start? So I guess if you're just talking about the health and wellness journey, that was a turn in my career where I'd gone from the corporate life, which I thought that's what I wanted to do from my, you know, when you leave school, you think, okay, climb the corporate ladder. That's what I need to do. So I was doing that by day. And then by night, I was, I guess, climbing the ladder of the night scene, the club scene, the event scene. That was my jam. I loved that because I was a DJ, a dancer, singer. Like, I wanted to be all about that life. So that's when I was living in Melbourne. Then my father one night, he had a heart attack. And, you know, after living 5 years of this crazy, amazing lifestyle in Melbourne, I decided, okay, I'm going to move back home. I want to be closer to my father, my family. And I wasn't motivated to go back into that field. Like, I was just making all the excuses, as you do when you don't really want to do something. It's, oh, that job's too far away. That doesn't pay enough. No, there's no room for improvement there. That's not the one for me. And it's just like, okay, I had to call myself on it and be like, well, clearly that's not what you want to do. So what is it, something that you enjoy? And that's when I realized, well, I love the gym. And then there was this one class in particular. And so Aussies will know what it is. It's Body Combat by Les Mills. And I loved it. And I thought, what does it take to be an instructor? And I Googled it and it said, oh, you had your Cert 3 in fitness. And I'm like, okay, where do I get one of those? And then so I signed up, and the next thing you know, I'm doing my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. And I fell in love with personal training that I never actually even taught that class. And I just dived straight on in. And this is a decade ago now. And I've never looked back. It was the best decision I've ever made. So yeah, I live and breathe health and wellness. And that's all I've been doing.
So, well, I can attest to that, because I think most of our conversation on that very first morning, led us to that. You're incredibly passionate in that way. What, so you've moved back home.
Mm-hmm.
You've decided that you're going to follow something that you love and explore and see where that goes. Now, I want to stick with that for a minute, because we often hear people saying, guys and girls always saying throughout their life, no matter what age they are, is that, I wish I was doing something else, or I don't like what I'm doing now. And quite often people say, well, why don't you start with what you love doing? Explore that. Now, we hear that, Ria, but not a lot of people actually go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'll go and explore that, because more often than not, they have a fear of, if they do that, not only might it not work out, but it mightn't sustain them for their lifestyle, for their, for money, for income, and all of those other attributes that are for life. So taking that into consideration, when you decided to explore what you were passionate about, did any of those fears come up? And if they did, how did you address them to get you through?
I don't know if there was any one thing, because there was an element of fear, because there was that thought, like, if I try this and it doesn't work and I'm out of my, quote, field for too long, then it will be harder for me to get back into it, because they're like, oh, well, you haven't been doing it for a while. So there was that. But I think at that time it was still drummed in my head that, look, you're still young, just try and do whatever you want, So, and saying that's when I moved to Melbourne, I was 21, and my saying then was, it's better to try and fail than to never try at all. And I always knew in the back of my head, if I moved there and I, quote, failed, I could always move back home. And it was only an hour flight. So I didn't have too much fear around it. I was more excited. I mean, obviously it's scary, but I was more excited than anything, because I was going there so often anyway, and I just wanted to make that my life. So I guess when I moved back, and Adelaide's a very different place to live than Melbourne, and it's a lot quieter, and I think that it wasn't going to fulfill me the same way that I had felt when I lived in Melbourne. So I had to do something different. I had to do something that was going to light my fire. And I just didn't care. Like it is better to follow your heart and do something. And to take that even further, I took a substantial pay cut to start doing what I did. Because when you start your own business, see, I've been an employee my whole life. And then all of a sudden now I'm a business owner, or solopreneur, or whatever you want to call it. And I was responsible for my own income, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Let's be honest. You dive in, they don't teach you this when you get your certain 3 and 4 in fitness. So the first tax time comes along, and I've made half the amount of money that I used to make. And I was like, youch. And my dad looked at me, as he does, caring, loving Italian father. And he goes, are you sure you don't want to just find a job? It's not too late. You've only been doing this for a little while. You could probably still get a good job. And I said, no, Dad, I really like this. I have to make this work. And then year 2 comes, and I've only made a little blip of improvement. I'm working long hours, because if anyone knows the fitness industry, it is, 6 a.m., 5 a.m. wake up, 6 a.m. starts. And most of the time I was there from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night. I was working around the clock, Monday to Friday. I was working Saturdays, and I was still maybe like a third of the way to what I used to make. And this went on. Year 3 came, and every year tax time, Dad goes, are you sure you don't want to just get a job? And I'm like, no, Dad, trust me. I know it feels right. It just feels so right in my heart. I got to keep going with this. Like, I have to make this work. So even though I was working around the clock, really burning myself at both ends, but it just felt so right in my heart that I had to just keep pursuing it.
So in your industry, and you did touch on the fact before, like Adelaide, which is your hometown in South Australia and Australia, it is a little bit different to other cities in in Australia, and I would go so far as to suggest in the world. Population is not large. And the fitness and health industry is quite huge, and I would suggest competitive as well. So, when you first started with your business, then how did you go about making it known that, number one, that you existed, and number one, that you had a service that would be far better than the next person in order for that client to choose you?
I've always been a high achiever and quite competitive, and I always wanted to be the best. So even when I was still getting my cert, I wasn't even graduating yet, and I had already committed to starting to running my business out of it. It was a fitness first back then. And the coordinator from the club that I was joining come in, and he dropped my uniforms off for me, and you know, people were like, "Oh, you're already committed? You're already doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go." And and I dived right in, and you know, you've got a bit of a grace period where they don't charge you rent yet, where you can build up your business. And I exceeded my goals within that first month. I already, you know, built my business to where I wanted to be to make, you know, ends meet, but obviously not the salary that I was previously making, but that's okay. And yeah, it's, I guess, because I had life experience. That's what the PT manager used to say to me. He goes, "There's something about you, Ria, and I think people will connect with you because, you know, you're not just fresh out of school. You know, you can connect with the people and they want to learn from you." And I guess being someone who works in health and wellness or fitness, you have to look the part as well. And because I always looked the part, that, you know, I am my billboard, really. So, you know, people see me training or training people, see me around the gym, and they're like, "Oh, I like the look of her." You know, it's we're a judgmental society, aren't we? But like, you know, you judge a book by its cover, and you're like, "Okay, fair enough," you know. And I've been doing this now for 10 years. And I told my client the other day, I was like, "You know, do you realize it's been almost 10 years since you've been working with me?" And she was like, hang on, were you new when I signed up with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, didn't you know I was new?" And she's like, "No, I didn't know you were new. You didn't act new. You didn't seem new. You didn't smell new." And I was like, "Well, great. Then clearly I was doing a good job." Because, you know, the last thing you want to come in and be fumbling around, and you know, I've always held myself to a standard where I want to deliver and be professional. And I'm glad that came across from day dot.
It certainly helps. And you're right, life experience is a really big part, especially in your industry, of because it's a people business, isn't it? And so to that end, then your client base, are you finding that you've got more clients in the younger demographic, or are you finding an increase in the say over 40s, over 50s, over 60s at all?
I have both. I have both ends of the spectrum, which is why I've really struggled with niching, because, you know, everyone from the start have said you got to niche down. You know, is it bodybuilding? Then you got to tell everyone you're a bodybuilder. And I was like, "Well, no, that's not just what I do." And well, "Oh, what is it then?" And you got to niche, Ria. You got to niche. And I'm like, I can't niche, because every person that comes to me presents differently. Like, how am I supposed to just say this is what I do when I do all the things? And I have clients that are young. Like, I have clients now 15, 16 years old, and then I've got clients who are 70. It's like, how do I niche down to just hit that demographic? And then when I look at my marketing statistics, and I can't even say it's just women. It's, you know, 60% women, 40% male. So where do you go? Like it's literally been my biggest challenge, is figuring out who to niche down to. And that's why when I got this award, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was like, thank goodness that it's finally paid off to be such an all-rounder, because that is what made me stand out above all the other 9 people in that top 10. Because they even told me the reason why you're number 1, Ria, is because you do all the things, and all the other people that were in that top 10, they specialize, in yoga, or they specialize in this and they specialize in that. And it's like, well, but you do all of them. So thank goodness it finally paid off.
And congratulations for that. When we saw it on social media, we were so proud and so happy for you. And it does. It's a testimony to who you are. Any award isn't given out just cause. They're always given out for all the right reasons. Well, we would hope so. And indeed, this one, making you the number 1 health and wellness coach in Australia for 2021, is such a fabulous accolade. How does something like that help your business moving forward?
I don't know yet. No, it's only been a couple of weeks, but look, it's been great. I guess there is something around getting that notoriety and being able to use that title that gives people like, oh, what is she doing over there? And in all honesty, it actually made me reflect for a moment that everything that I've been doing the last year. So prior to COVID, I prided myself on being an in-person practitioner. I'm one-on-one, I'm brick and mortar business, I'm word of mouth, I don't advertise. Like people are like, you don't post a lot. And I was like, no, I don't need to. Like my business, my leads, everyone comes from word of mouth. As long as you got a good reputation, people are going to keep coming back to you. And like I said, I got clients that have been with me for almost 10 years, 8 years, 9 years. So I don't need to do online. And then COVID, and then lockdowns, and it propelled me, and it was a blessing, to the online space, because then I started speaking and I started being, I don't like using the word expert, but it kind of put me in that light to speak about the things that I can speak well about, which is everything health and wellness. I could speak at length about most, if any topic really, as long as it's health and wellness specific or fitness specific. And so I started doing just that. And yeah, it's been amazing. So it's literally been a year since I've thrown myself out there. I've been speaking at all these events all around the world. People are starting to, see more of me. I'm posting more, I'm sharing more, because I'm thinking, well, why not? There was a part of me prior to that I actually used it in my marketing. I'm Adelaide's best kept secret, Like you only know about me if someone tells you about me. And like, that is just so naive of me. Like looking back, I just laugh now, because how am I supposed to help more people if people don't know who the hell I am? And I can only serve so many people at any given time. So last year when I really hit the brink, and I'm like, okay, I can't take in any more clients. So how am I going to help more people? And I'm like, well, then I need to go online, and I need to do more stuff online and just share stuff. Because I can. And, and there are all these other people that aren't experts, and they haven't been doing it for as long as I have, sharing content that is, most of the time nonsense, let's call it that. And why not have someone admit that? I'm just going to give you I'm going to serve up the real deal, and I'm going to serve up things that I believe is useful to, the people who like to hear what I have to say. So that's what I do now.
So expanding your business now through leveraging other resources is really quite exciting, isn't it? Because, as you said, and specifically in your industry, when you're working one-on-one with people, and let's face it, quite often, I'll put my hand up, I'm guilty of it. I've had personal trainers, heaps of personal trainers over my lifetime. But having said that, the fact that I say that I've had heaps of personal trainers means that I haven't stayed with any one trainer. So from their perspective, then they only have their business with me in that moment that I'm actually a client. Once I'm gone, they don't have that business. So you discovering, exploring, and expanding your business by leveraging is quite powerful, isn't it? And where do you see this taking you in the future with your business at Fitsique?
I just see it continuing to grow. You know, I have to limit the amount of one-on-one time that I do, but I won't rid of it because I love it. You know, I say it to my clients all the time. They're like, you know, if you won the lottery, what would you do? And I said, I would still train you. I still love it. I would just have my own facility. It would be private and exclusive, and, you know, wouldn't have to worry about anything else. And because I love it. But I do have to limit my time, because what I've learned over this last year, and I guess, and I didn't quite get to the point of what I was saying there, is I wouldn't have been awarded that. People wouldn't have known who I was if I didn't spend a whole year of putting myself out there. And so they headhunted me. They, you know, I didn't seek this opportunity. They asked me if I wanted to be interviewed for this opportunity, and I said, yes, let's go. And so that's why I was reflecting upon it. I'm like, if I didn't put myself out there, this wouldn't have happened. So I guess I still want to do one-on-one, but I do want to help as many more people as I can. So how do I scale me? How do I scale Ria? And the answer is going into a more one-to-many model. It's more of that group, online, in-person workshops, mentorships, masterminds, really getting a group of people together that can grow as a community and, you know, lift each other up and support each other and just bounce off each other. Because at the end of the day, like, yes, I want to be there and I want to help people and support everyone as much as I can. But, you know, as a community, we can lift each other up a lot more. And the success I've had with my group trainings in the past, which have all been in person, they love it so much. You know, by the time it finishes, because I only do it for, you know, a period of time, and then they're like, oh, can you keep going? And I was like, well, it's a lot of extra work for me. So we got to have a break for a little bit. And then, but they love it. They, you know, they're laughing, they're training, they're being competitive, and they're supporting each other. So that's the kind of camaraderie and community that I want to, commit to growing moving forward. And that's what I love about, you know, my podcast now. And that's why I'm trying to build a community around that. So I'm just trying to get like-minded people together so we can all grow. And that's the thing. Why do I have clients that have been with me for, you know, 8, 9, 10 years? And a lot of my clients joke when new people come on board and they're like, once you're in, you're in. Like, you know, you don't leave, which limits how many people that I can take on. But having said that, they stay because they're continually progressing. You know, my mantra is, if you're not progressing, you're regressing. So they stay with me because they're constantly getting results. So if they weren't constantly getting results, they wouldn't keep going. You know, it's not that then they're incompetent of doing it on their own. Actually, a lot of them are very fantastic lifters because I've taught them exactly that. Like, I've had trainers come to learn with me. They watch and I'm like, all right, so what could that person improve with that lift, or what could they do better? And they're like, nothing, it's perfect. And then the client will be like, yes, that's because she's made me do it 100 times until I got it right. And I was like, yeah, that's right, because I'm OCD. Like, I want them to I don't want them to hurt themselves. Like, we lift for longevity and health and wellness, and it's the whole package. You know, it's not just like lifting weights in the gym. It's the whole thing. It's mindset. It's, you know, everything.
Mentors are really important. Personal development and growth is really important. Who would you say in the past or currently are your mentors?
I will credit a mentor who gave me the business structure that I needed. So back when I was talking about how I was, let's just say, a passionate but broke trainer. Well, I wasn't broke, but like I was, you know, when you know that you used to make a certain amount and you're not making it anymore, it kind of makes you feel like you're not as successful. And so I literally I took myself out for lunch one day and I was scratching my head going, is this really what I want to do? Like, this is not going as I expected. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And that's what they say about business. First few years is the hardest. And I got a phone call from a trainer. He's a trainer, a coach. His name is Mark Otobre, in Melbourne. And I look at my phone, I'm like, Mark's calling me? What the hell? And he offered me the first spot in his elite coaching program nationally. So I was the first phone call he made for a 12-month mentorship in Melbourne. I lived in Adelaide this stage. Like, I wish he, I was in a different world. When I lived in Melbourne, so I had no idea who he was at that time. But I had done some one-on-one coaching with him, and I really admired where he was at, because he was steps ahead. So I've always seek mentorship from a person who's where I want to be. They're doing something that I admire, that I want to strive for. And I thought that that's what I wanted, a studio with tons of trainers working for me and everything that he had. And he's calling me and he's going, hey, I want to offer you a spot in this mentorship. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to afford that. But yes. And I took this crazy leap of faith, and I was like, I'm just going to have to work it out. And it's one of those things that I guess has always paid the greatest reward for me, is when I've taken a big step like that, where I really did not know how I was going to afford it, how I was going to manage going to Melbourne every 2 months and taking time off of work to go to Melbourne to do that. But I did that not just for 12 months. I actually did a second year as well. I did it for 2 straight years, and like over 20 different times I went there. But I needed that. And that investment that I made in myself paid me back twofold, because now finally I was feeling successful, because I had that business smarts. I had the structure to follow to get the result that I wanted, because I was already passionate. I just didn't have the tools to be successful. And he gave me those tools, and I'll always credit him for that. Definitely made me built my business for me. And it's important to have. I always have to have a mentor or a coach to strive towards.
That's fabulous. What if let's talk about health and wellness in today's society, mm-hmm. and what would you say to, and especially we've talked about COVID and you quite often hear these days people saying, I've got the COVID kilos, from lockdown. I think health and wellness was sort of maybe in some cases put on the side for 2020. But what do you think is for today's society and the way that we live, and it's a fast life, and convenience is the go, and all that sort of thing, and quite often people don't put as much emphasis on their health and fitness and wellness as perhaps they should. Yet on the other end of the scale, we're seeing massive increases in potentially preventable diseases and health challenges. What would you say to our listeners today about why they should be taking their personal health and wellness into a high priority in their lives?
It is of the utmost importance. Like, it's the only thing that the home that you take with you everywhere is your body. It's your health. It's your wealth. Health is wealth. I mean, as cliche as it sounds to even say that, health is wealth. And the investments that you make in your health, no one can ever take that from you. I even say that to people, like, sometimes, we have to part ways, and I've had people that don't stay the course, and they move on. But I know that they take with them the tools and everything that I've taught them. They take that with them wherever they go. And as long as they continue to practice those principles, and, I can say that it's not just like, I don't just teach this. It is the whole thing. You need to learn how to take care of yourself in the best way that's optimized for you, because I cater to the person. It's if they are a shift worker, I've got a lot of people in the medical field, busy people, like you said, like, we're busy, and people will say to me, oh, I'm interested in doing a bodybuilding show, but I don't have time to eat 6 meals a day. And I was like, I don't have time to eat 6 meals a day. Who told you got to eat 6 times meals, like 6 times a day, you got to just make it work for you. And it's very achievable. It's not as scary or as hard as people think it is. Everything's scary and hard when you think about how far away you are from your goal. You have to just take that first step and start to implement the small little things that you know you can manage and you can do, and what's sustainable. It was just a conversation I was having with one of my clients. I've only been working with her for about 4 weeks, and I said, and she goes, I'm not feeling like I can do this right now. And I'm like, well, what is it that you're not feeling you can do? She's like, it's such a big change. And I said, okay, so what is sustainable for you? You know, with the nutrition, that's probably the thing that she's struggling with the most. And because she wanted to make the drastic change, because people come in and they're like, I want to go, like, I want to do all the things, just tell me, you know, the quote diet, and I'll do the plan and I'll train all this. I'm like, hang on, just calm down a second. Like, this is not supposed to be a chore. This is supposed to be a lifestyle. This is supposed to be something that, you know, you take with you and you continue to do it for a long time. It's all about longevity in this game, longevity of health, longevity of life quality. You know, I was having a conversation with her about, like, okay, week 1, you said you were smashing it, you felt really good, and that was, you know, eating that way. So what can we make, where can we meet in the middle and make it work for you? And then we work together to find what works for her, and then that's what she'll do. That's part of being a good coach. You're not just telling someone, do this. It's how can we get you to where you want to be? What's the best way? What's the most realistic way that we can make this a sustainable, ongoing thing that you can continue to achieve?
I think I think you've hit something right on the head here, especially certainly for me, and hopefully for our listeners as well. You mentioned that you were talking about one client there who is training for competition.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're talking about other clients who just are just coming in just to make a change within, you know, they've made that decision, that health and wellness, you know, decision. A lot of people do, rightly or wrongly, often think that, oh, if I get a personal trainer, or if I start following a personal trainer on social media or what have you, you only have them because you're going to be a bodybuilder.
Mm.
Right. Do you get that? Do you sometimes get that, people saying to you, oh, well, like, you know, I just want to get healthy. You know, I don't want to go and do these competitions and things like that. Do you think that that's one of the reasons why people are attracted to coming to you at Fitsique?
I think when I was doing a lot more shows, because obviously that's what I was posting, was pictures from my competitions or pictures of my clients' competitions. So that I got a little bit more known for that. And even the PT manager that used to work at where my clinic is, he used to always tell people, and I'd hear him, and I told him not to say that, but he would be like, oh yeah, she's the bodybuilder and blah, blah, blah. I was like, so you've put me into a little pigeonhole, you know? And I guess as I, you know, life, and I decided I don't want to do as many shows. Just, I have to be motivated to do the show. And I think when I do the shows, it's because I want to, and because it's that time where I want to look at myself subjectively, because in all honesty, I don't prance around half naked very often at all. And so I don't get to look at myself subjectively and be like, I need to improve this, and this about myself, you know, or I'm looking to, where am I going to go next? So most of the time people, it's a mixed bag. And this is why one of the struggles again with the niching is because I was prepping people for shows, but then the next thing I was repairing people after the shows, because as a lot of other coaches who think they know what they're doing and they don't, and then they tell these people, oh, you need to do all of this and take these and do this, and then their health is extremely compromised. They become ill, their hormones are out of whack, they blow out, you know, they literally, they get to the show, they get 10% body fat, and the next minute they're overweight. So there's a lot of mental and physical challenges that occur after a show if you don't have the right guidance. And so after that, I started getting people coming to me to repair them. So I'm like, well, do I tell everyone that I'm a repair people after competition coach? No. Because then at the same time, I've got women who come to me because they've seen what I've been able to achieve with people. And then they're like, I really admire what you've been able to achieve and what you've achieved with yourself and with other people. But I don't actually have any interest of getting on stage. But I want to look like I could. I want to look like a fit person. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. You know, and I mean, it's no different to the women who come to me who are getting ready for their wedding. It's more important actually than a competition, is getting ready for your big day. Show day is a big day, and they're both equally as expensive, even though your wedding wins. But you gotta look amazing in that dress. You're the star of the show, and you sculpt the body to look great in the dress. So yeah, it's anything is possible. You just have to know that, envision where you want to go, and then we work towards that.
So what does the future look like for you and your business?
It's going to expand and grow way more than I probably would have envisioned if you'd asked me this last year. So like I said, I'm going more into online group training, workshops, masterminds. I'm really going to try to educate. That's my prerogative now, is to educate, put the right message out there, get people together that can lift each other up and just get amazing results. Like, that stuff really fuels me. I love it when people want to learn, people, I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions. I'm like, no, ask me the questions. Let's go. Like, I love to teach, I love to coach, and I love to get people results. And I truly know that I can do that with more people than just one-on-one. One-on-one is always going to be like that premium. You can't beat it. It's just one-on-one. It's something that's really special about that. But there's something really special about doing it as a group. And that's really where I'm going now. And there'll be online courses, all sorts of things that I'm going to do when we can travel a bit more, even expand that overseas, because I have clients now in the US. So obviously I can't go to them right now, but maybe that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over there and teach workshops and have masterminds over in the US at some stage. But for now, I can do what I can here in South Australia and expand it over to Melbourne, which I've got, great coaches that are friends of mine that want to do things together. And that's what we can do. That's where I'm going.
We always ask this question of our guests, Ria, and you're not escaping it. And it is the question: if you had an 8-year-old Ria in front of you right now, what advice would you give her for the future?
You are enough, and follow your heart, and let no one tell you no different.
Great advice. Your podcast is Summon Your Superhuman. How can, so as a fellow podcaster, how can our listeners access that?
Easy. Type in Summon Your Superhuman and there's only one, and check it out. I'd love to hear what people think about it. And I'm pretty easy to find if you want to connect with me. Ria Mestiza. There's only one of me in the world. So yeah, whatever works for you.
And we'll put all of Ria's contact details below in this, from where you're listening to our podcast right now. Ria, your focus and your dedication is to impacting and inspiring a life beyond expectations. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to get an insight into exactly that. You're an amazing woman. Your story is incredible, and I have no doubt that summoning your superhuman, which you've already done, and taking it into the future, we are going to be hearing a lot more about you in the future. Ria, thank you so much for being with us today on Talk the Walk.
Thank you, Jaynie. It's my pleasure.
And if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as I have enjoyed bringing it to you, we'd love you to like it, comment below, share it, and please follow us as well. You can certainly keep up to date with all of our podcasts. Simply go to jayniemorris.com, subscribe, and we'll keep you up to date. But of course, wherever you're listening to this on, Apple, Spotify, iTunes, any good podcasting streaming app, we are very happy to have your company. So until next time, this is Jaynie Morris, Talk the Walk podcast. Wherever you are in this amazing, beautiful world of ours, I hope you have an absolutely fabulous day.